Hey friends, what's up? Erik Garcia here. Thanks for listening to the Stuff About Money podcast. This is a two-part series here. This is part one where Xavier and I sit down with Jessica Burke of Now Wedding Magazines, and we talk about the cost of a wedding, the financial decisions that you're going to have to make for a wedding. And in part two, we talk about 7 financial issues that you should discuss before getting married. So if you know of anyone who's getting married, if you're getting married yourself, or if you have children who will get married one day, you want to listen to this and share it with them. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you will get part 2 delivered directly to your listening device. Listening, y'all.
Welcome back to Stuff About Money They Did Not Teach You in School with your certified financial planners. I'm Xavier Angel, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Erik Garcia. What's good, Erik?
What's good, man? Life's good, man. Life's good. There's always something to hold on to that's good.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful day outside today.
We've had some unbelievable weather.
If we could keep this weather like this all year round, this is perfect. Give me the low to mid 70s. I'll take it.
Well,
it's absolutely perfect.
If we can keep the weather like this, and if we can keep, so we're recording on October 28th. If we can keep October's stock market performance like this, dude, life would be good. But
absolutely.
By the time this drops, I'm sure the market will have dropped as well. So, what we got on tap today, Xavier?
Today we're going to be discussing planning for weddings financially. Ooh. So today we've got a special guest with us today, my friend Jessica Burke.
Hello.
How you doing, Jessica?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about who you are.
So I am the publisher of Now Weddings Magazine. I've owned the company since 2008, but it's been around since 1992. I'm also a photographer, and I own a social media management company. So I'm mostly in the wedding industry, but do kind of venture out into other areas.
But so now stands for New Orleans Weddings, right? Am I correct?
Yes, it originally started as New Orleans Weddings, and we are trying to be more inclusive of other areas, expand through the Gulf Coast.
Like Metairie? Like Metairie, you want to include Metairie and Canada?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's all of the Southeast Louisiana, but really across Louisiana and into basically over to Florida and all of those areas.
So when you guys originally started, if I remember correctly, you were just a magazine. Now you guys have a social media presence as well, correct?
Yes. We started as a magazine. I started as the graphic designer for the magazine in 2003, eventually bought the company from that owner, and we've expanded the magazine. It's changed. Obviously, COVID changed a lot of things for us. We were originally a primarily print publication distributed in Southeast Louisiana. Now we're a virtual publication with print-on-demand options that can ship anywhere in the world, and we have readers all over the world on our platform Issue.
Okay. Xavier, I don't think our younger clients probably don't even know what magazines are, man. Right?
No.
Yeah. It's very old school.
Yeah. What is that?
It's fun though.
It's like writing a check. Yeah. Like, what is that? Yes. A magazine? What is that? Cool. Yes. So you know a thing or two about the wedding space, right?
Yes, I've been around the wedding industry in this area since 1996, so over 25 years.
Dang. And you are married, right? We were talking offline.
Yes.
You're married, so you know a little bit about like the actual trenches of not just yes. putting together a wedding, but the actual like execution of the day and years after the day.
Yes, we're actually coming up on our 10th anniversary this December.
Oh, congratulations.
10.
Thank you.
10. I am going on 22. It'll be 22 next year.
Ooh, wow. That's awesome. Man.
16 for me next year. So
this is cool. So we are going to be, this is a part 1 of 2 series. So we're going to talk about something that y'all have on tap for us to talk about on this first episode. In the second episode, we're going to talk about, the list is 7 right now, 7 financial issues that you need to talk about when getting married. That'll be part 2. So you're going to want to stick around for both episodes, all our listeners. So make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcast from. And you can also find us at stuffaboutmoney.com. So let's jump into our topic for today. Xavier, lead us off, my friend.
So Jessica, one of the things that we do when we start our podcast is we always ask our guest, what is one thing about money you wish you would have known 20 years ago?
There's so many, but for
Just one.
today, I know.
Well, look, we have 2 episodes
Just
with
this
you, so
one.
you can do one now and the second one next.
Yeah.
Okay, fair
So you
enough.
get
All
2.
right. Well, I would say the biggest thing as a business owner is understanding accounting on more than a very basic level. I am one that I will constantly hear. You'll constantly hear me say I can do the paperwork. I just don't like doing it. So early on, I hired people to handle my books for me, which is a great decision if you're not inclined or don't have the skills. But I just trusted that they were doing everything correctly. And it's cost me a lot of money over the years, errors, things that weren't billed out properly. Actually double paid some taxes I didn't know about. That was unfortunate. And so it's one of those things that I actually participated in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program in 2019. And they had an entire module just on the accounting basics. And it opened my eyes, helped me understand my business on a whole different level, helped me find things that were not correct so that I could correct them so I wasn't losing money. And that would be something that I would highly recommend to anyone thinking about opening a business. You can't just turn it over and never look at it. You need to have your hands in it. You need to look at it and make sure it's correct.
Man, my first pillar of financial security is know where your money is. And what you just said is so critical. Like, cash is the lifeblood of any business. And if you don't know what's coming in and what's going out or where it's going, especially in a business where you have tax deductions and I love what you just said about understanding accounting. I think a previous guest, you're the second person who talked about that. A previous guest entrepreneur said the same thing. Learn accounting, learn it, and then you can delegate it once you know it, once you're looking at it. So
and just check in on it every now and then. That's so important. Make sure that the people you're paying are doing it correctly.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
Now, so our topic today, as I mentioned earlier, is what goes into planning financially for a wedding. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about wedding budgets. How do you come up with a wedding budget?
Okay, so there's a number of ways you need to start. Obviously, you need to have a conversation around this. Start with your fiance, sit down, think about how much you can put aside, how much you have saved, discuss who's going to be contributing. Will you have parents, family members, great aunt that just wants to help you pay for this, and find out how much. And one of the big things, a lot of times I see it happen though, is that you'll have someone say, oh, I'll pay for whatever, but they don't have an actual realistic idea of what that item might cost, or they might change their mind down the line. So it's really good to have a solid understanding, know the people you're dealing with that are contributing and how reliable they are. And just try to be realistic. Every market is different. So your money in one market might go further or less far in another market. And you really need to know what you're comfortable doing. I never recommend going into debt to pay for a wedding.
Amen.
It's not a good idea.
Yes,
amen.
definitely.
Jessica, I'm curious. So back in the days, when I was a kid, back in the days when I got married, traditionally, right, the wife's parents paid for the wedding, the husband's or the groom's parents paid for the rehearsal dinner. Do you still see those as traditional norms, or is that all out the window?
There are some circumstances where you do see that happening, but more and more the couple themselves are paying for the wedding and maybe have a smaller contribution from the parents and family. A lot of times you'll have second marriages as well, where the parents say, hey, we paid for the first one. We're not going to pay for the second one. Sorry, you're on your own. But I would say the vast majority of weddings today, you're going to see more of the couple paying for it themselves.
That would be terrible. Yeah. So let's, Mr. Client, let's plan for 2 weddings, your kid's first wedding and then their second wedding. That wouldn't go too well, right?
Yeah. No, not really. Not really. I mean, it just... you don't want to walk into a marriage in that mindset. Let's just face it.
So one of the things that you mentioned is, get with your spouse and come up with a budget. And so I saw that on the website, you guys actually have a wedding calculator. So what are some of the things, and we're looking at guests. So what are some of the things that are involved in that calculator for us to be able to sit down with our spouse and put together a budget?
Okay, so the very biggest thing that is going to impact your budget in any case is going to be your guest count. And a lot of people don't realize that the guest count is such a big deal. And it will affect literally everything from how much food you need to order to your bar tab to how many chairs you need to rent for the reception. I mean, literally how many favors. Every little detail, aside from maybe the wedding dress, is, and maybe the photographer will end up being affected. And, you know, you need to have a realistic conversation of who you're going to invite and how many people. If you come from a big family, one of you comes from a big family, both of you comes from a big family, you have a lot of friends that are going to be expected to attend, and or you're in business and you feel obligated to invite colleagues, clients, etc. And also anytime you have, if you're having parents or someone else contribute, they will have a say in how that money's spent. So they're going to want to be able to say, well, I want to invite my friends. So having that guest count solid before you get started and know before you jump into this is going to make a big difference. And it will determine like even what kind of venue you can pick. You might need a smaller venue, a larger venue. You don't want to book something until you know about how many people you're going to invite.
I'm interested in, you said, you know, the obligated to invite certain people. Like you probably need to have like a therapist on your wedding team to help you deal with that. Like, oh gosh, do we really have to invite that person? Someone to like talk you through that, right? Because if I invite them, and y'all know what I'm talking about. If I invite them, oh gosh, then I got to invite them. And if they come, then they have to come. And I really don't like them. So like, I'm just not, you know, my goodness gracious, the emotions I got to imagine
And it keeps growing.
Oh,
so
Lord.
Erik actually mentioned an interesting thing, and you and I have talked about this offline, and Erik talked about that therapist, that wedding coordinator. You know, is that something that when planning a wedding, or is that someone that we need to go out there and get involved in it?
A coordinator?
Yes.
Yes. It really does depend on the event you're planning and how you're planning. Let's say you are getting married in a city that you're not currently living in. You can't travel back regularly to go meet with people. Having a coordinator can really help you manage that event, make it smoother, make it less stressful. If you're planning a huge event, I am all in favor of hiring a coordinator. I think it's a great investment for your wedding, especially if you have never planned a wedding or are not familiar with the event space. They can help you not make mistakes and spend money that you don't need to spend, or help you make better decisions.
You said, hold on, you said something. I'm sorry for cutting you off. You said it's an investment in your wedding. I would take a step back and say it's probably an investment in your relationship. Okay. Like you're around people getting married all the time. How much stress is involved? It's crazy to me. Like there's this dream day, this beautiful day, and like it is loaded with stress. So like hiring a coordinator is probably like a really smart thing for your relationship.
I actually had a month of coordinator for my wedding, and it was a great investment because I got to just sit back and enjoy my day when things went sideways because the weather was weird, and she just handled it and I didn't have to worry about it. I actually got to enjoy the experience instead of having to run around and answer people's questions and troubleshoot things. I mean, I was pretty familiar with the space as it was, so I knew what I wanted. I knew who I needed to talk to, so I didn't necessarily need the full planning experience, but a lot of people do need that. And you can find yourself getting stuck in I have to do this, and that's not the case. You don't have to do anything other than legally sign on the dotted line. You know,
it's expectations. Expectations are big. So like I have these expectations in a wedding coordinator. It's kind of like us as financial planners. Like, do you need one? No. Is it smart to have one? Yeah. We know what you don't know. We've seen it happen before, so we can shortcut the process really quickly.
And they could be kind of that go-between in some cases. Like if there's something going on, they can advise you, okay, I have this social situation. How do I handle it? How can I best handle this without hurting someone's feelings or doing your best to not hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
So, and it's like the expectations on the guest count. A lot of people will just try to invite themselves to your wedding. I had it happen a number of times, and my response was, "Oh gosh, I guess I can uninvite grandma. That's okay."
I'm sitting here thinking I'm sitting here. You were talking about like guest list is like the big thing that drives the cost of the wedding. I'm planning an event in March here in New Orleans.
Okay.
And so, I mean, a wedding's an event. So you got to get a place, you got to get food, you got to get alcohol. It's like, we're looking at 100 to 150 per person when it's all said and done.
Yes.
So like,
yes, on average around here.
So you invite this person who then you have to invite this person who has to invite that person. All of a sudden you're $2,000 in inviting people, buying drinks for people that you just don't like.
Yes. Or don't even know in some cases,
Right.
all the plus ones and all of that going on. And it does add up very quickly at those price points. It's not just, hey, I'm just going to show up.
If I were to get married again today, my wife would probably disagree with me. If I were to get married to my wife again today, I'd say, let's just get like a couple boxes of Popeyes or Chubby's. Just get some fried chicken, make a big pot of beans. Let's make some black beans. Let's roast a pig. Let's just keep it simple.
And call it a day.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more of these destination weddings where it's like, look, I don't want a big thing. Let's just fly me and our close family to Jamaica and get married.
It's honestly, it may seem like it's more expensive with flights, but in the long run, it's a lot easier. And I think that's been something that's been a thing for a while. Actually, New Orleans here is a huge destination wedding market. It has been for many, many years. And a lot of people want to come here because it's beautiful and the food's amazing and the music is fantastic. But I mean, I've done everything from very small elopements here to huge, 700 guest weddings.
700 guests.
Yes, it can get
Cheese and Pete's.
huge.
So we had
they can get big.
We had like three. You talked about earlier about like guest lists, like big families. So we're both big families, both in New Orleans. We got married in New Orleans, and we had like 300 and something people, and we're like, "Who's that? Oh, that's so and so's related to so and so." I'm like, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing is I've actually had to advise people on how to sneak out of a wedding reception unnoticed because they were invited. It was a client, invited them to the wedding. They felt obligated to attend, would have been happy to send a gift. No, just honestly, they had other things they wanted to do that day. And so I told them, okay, here's where you're going to sit. You're going to make sure they see you. And then after the first dance, you're going to walk right out the door. So, but I mean, that's also the true irony. Honestly, I think COVID showed people, it allowed people to trim their guest list without having to hurt people's feelings. Oh, the venue will only let so many people. And it was baffling to me. We would see brides cancel their wedding, reschedule it for months down the road because so-and-so said they couldn't attend. And I was like, I just wanted to take them and say, hey, sweetheart, they don't want to come. Don't lose your deposits. Don't change your whole wedding because Great Aunt Sally.
So who's the wedding about at that point? Is the wedding about Great Aunt Sally, or is it about celebrating, your unity with your spouse?
Yes. Yeah, it was really sad to me. A lot of people lost a lot of money because family members were using COVID as the excuse they couldn't attend when it was more than likely they probably just didn't want to go.
Now we're in October 2022 now. So are you seeing these weddings get back to normal now as far as how big they are, how many people we're inviting?
Oh, yes. They're going back to normal. In fact, I mean, the parties are getting bigger and crazier. In the last month, I've actually, since I photograph weddings, I have done 3 so far this month and had one huge blowout wedding where everyone that they knew was invited. And they also had a roughly 30 guests, including the wedding in New Orleans. And they were sweet though. They came in town. It was just a very close event and they treated it as a destination event. So they had the wedding of their dreams within their budget.
So let's talk about what a typical wedding will cost on average.
Okay. Now, there is a
Typical.
company called theweddingreport.com, and they do all this wedding research in this market space in the US. And their average for 2022 is around $27,000. And they're saying that, that's pretty much keeping in line with last year. And I feel like it's been in that general vicinity for a few years. It tends to creep upwards average wise every year.
27,000. So
Yes,
that's
but it's a lot of money, but it also, depending on where you're located, it will either get you a huge blowout wedding or you may just get a very modest event.
In the back, what I'm doing right now. I'm calculating that. So let's say you get married at 30 and you drop $27,000. By the time you're 60, that $27,000 could have grown to $100 and something $1,000 with compounding interest. But Erik, it's one day. It's one day. Maybe, I don't know.
I've known of brides that were offered to take the money that would have been spent on the wedding to put a down payment on a house, and some of them took it and some of them said, no, I want the party.
Yeah, I've been to a couple weddings in the last several years, and that I look at that 27,000 number, and I'm like, if only they spent that amount.
Only they spent.
I'd look at 3-4 times as much as that 27,000. You look at the flowers on the tables and the walls and the gifts that they gave and the venue. I mean,
the venue. It's just, you walk into one venue, you're like, yeah, they dropped $100K on this wedding, easy.
Right.
Yeah, I've photographed weddings that spent double that just on flowers.
Yeah,
and that's not even the biggest weddings I've ever seen. There have been some $500,000 weddings that have happened in this neighborhood.
Absolutely. I've been to a couple that are probably in excess of.
So you teach people how to leave? You teach people how to leave weddings. Can you teach people how to sneak into weddings? I want to sneak into one of those weddings.
Sneaking in is a little bit harder. Sneaking in is a little bit harder. We could always tell. We would have conversations. We're like, that person wasn't at the ceremony, and they really aren't dressed for the event.
So
they're kind of just hanging.
If you're photographing a $500,000 wedding, I am more than happy to come whole bags for you. Okay, I'll rent a tuxedo. Right.
Yeah, the food is amazing. I'm telling you, we have some amazing weddings.
So we're talking about the wedding, the average wedding.
Yeah.
And we don't have these numbers in front of us, but I'm curious to know. Do you know what the average ring is?
Oh gosh, that I don't know, but the whole, what is it, over 2-3 months salary or whatever it was is not really in play anymore. I don't think that's something that people are necessarily thinking about. I do not have that information off the top of my head, but you're looking at several thousands easily.
Several thousand. I thought you'd be like
it's not bad.
I've seen tens of that 27,000 average wedding. I've seen it for the ring. Yeah. I bought how I bought my wife's ring, Xavier? I ever tell you this story?
No.
So we got married when we were 21, so we were engaged I think 20-ish or so.
Yeah.
And I was might have been working, but I really didn't have like a real job that was paying any money, but I had a piggy bank that had been saving money for years. That's awesome. I literally cracked open my piggy bank, took it to the bank, deposited. I had like $600 and something in my piggy bank. Nice. And I went to Ramsey's.
There you
Ramsey's
go.
Jewelers. I walked in and I picked out a ring and I put the down payment with, and it wasn't a fancy ring. It was a beautiful ring. But I put a down payment on with my piggy bank money.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Piggy bank. You bring that up to the girls now, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
My wife loves it.
No, I'm talking about Marissa and Grace. You tell them I had a piggy bank.
Well, you're in trouble with your daughter.
You better start saving. With my daughter.
You're going to be, that girl's going to want a $500,000 wedding. So you better start saving now.
Yeah. Just start do that separate bank account and just put it right in.
I'm not looking forward to it, but I potentially, I told both my girls, and if either one of them are listening, they're going to get upset with me. But I told them, I said, we could always have a Sweet 16 party and a wedding together. If Caitlin winds up getting married, then we could have both of them together. We just
So
have to wait.
That
We've
would
got
be
to plan it
efficient.
for 5 years out. So if we
that's
can
it. Tell
plan
Caitlin
five
to get
years
married in
out,
5 years. That's like plan to like recruit to that. That's what you're
right.
May
recruiting
not
to.
be the best decision down the
Oh,
road,
I
but
know. Look, they both would be upset with me.
yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna work, honestly.
Funny.
Oh gosh.
Great way to save money though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is. Just, double wedding, something like that,
right.
just has to all fall into place.
So Jessica, is there any events or anything that are coming up that you'd like to share? Because one of the things that Now Magazine has done in the past is you guys used to, and I think the pandemic has put this
Yeah.
on the back burner, but Now Magazine was hosting bridal shows.
Yes, we did. We actually had one earlier this year and then one last year. We actually had our last show before the pandemic on the day the pandemic was declared, ironically.
nice.
Best show we've ever had. It was amazing.
Impeccable timing.
But the market's been a little interesting, so we're pausing for 23 and we're going to see what happens. But we're not doing any shows ourselves, but I am actually speaking at an event called The Ripple Effect. That'll be here in the New Orleans area in January. Details are forthcoming. It's still in the planning stages, but it's an event for people who want to do more and be more in 2023. And,
Oh, very cool.
looking
Now,
forward
is
to
that
it.
part of
Yeah.
Now? Or is that kind of associated or something separate that you do kind of?
No, this is actually my business coach is producing this
Okay.
event and has asked me
Nice.
to speak at it. And so I'll be talking about social media management and managing your social presence at that particular event. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun event. She's got a lot of great speakers
All right.
lined up. So,
Let's talk about this. I'm glad you just said that. Your business coach. Your
yes.
business coach. This has been a theme lately that I've been having with some people.
Yes.
It's kind of like hiring a wedding coordinator, hiring a financial planner.
Mhm.
Why do you hire? What value do you get from a business coach?
I find that she's someone that will be honest with me, give me honest feedback. She's not, while she is a friend, she's also not afraid to give me an honest piece of feedback and tell me the truth about something and help me see things from a new perspective. Because you get so stuck, you can't see the forest for the trees, that statement. You get so wrapped up in the day-to-day running and everything that's happening around you, you can't see the big picture and what you need to do to move forward sometimes. And I find that having a coach is sometimes a great sounding board and, also just for great advice and looking at things, trying things in a new way, pushing me. She's actually pushing me to get my podcast that I've been wanting to do for 4 years, finally recording next month. So I'm excited about that.
Do you
That's
have
awesome.
a name? Do you have a name for your podcast?
The podcast is The Busy Mom Life.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as a serial business owner and mom of 4, it's a lot of balancing act. And I wanted to have a space to talk about how that all works, bring on experts that can help other moms who are in business and, see it's possible, see ways to work around those problems that you might run into trying to be a business owner and manage a family, which is, I think, very, it's a very common thing that we're running into. It's an issue a lot of moms run into.
Right. And hats off to you.
Thank you.
3 businesses.
Yes.
And 4 boys. I mean, it's
Holy smokes, 4 boys. That means that if we go based off of traditional values, you are paying for 0 weddings. Congratulations.
Yes. We're going to have some epic rehearsal
Dang.
dinners, let me tell you.
Yes, yes, indeed. You planned that well. Well done.
Yeah, I know.
Well
I don't know
done.
how I looked out like that.
So what I know we're gonna have a part 2 here to record with you in a few minutes,
Yes.
but what closing comment or advice do you have for people planning for weddings?
Okay, so my biggest thing with anyone is you don't have to do something for a wedding just because it's a tradition or because it's what your friends did or your family did. The most important thing, like we said earlier, is about the couple getting married, pledging their love, and starting their lives together. And really, the event itself, it can be very simple but very meaningful. And if there's something that doesn't resonate with you, a tradition or something, like if you don't even like wedding cake, you don't have to have one. You don't have to spend that money on something you don't really want just because it's expected. And this is great. Well, go off and elope if that's what you want. Have that event, have your wedding, not someone else's.
Wedding cake is good though. So
It is. I do like
is
wedding
good.
cake, but wedding pie is perfectly acceptable.
Okay, Xavier,
Yeah.
any closing thoughts, man, before we wrap this part one up?
I'm excited about part two of this, guys. So definitely stick around and tune in
Stick
for
around.
part two.
Stick around.
Yes, I
Follow
am
us
too.
so it drops in your podcast listening app when it drops. Jessica,
Yes.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you so
being
much
here.
for having me. Thank you.